So I've been speaking to a new client recently and they're currently looking at entering into retirement. And in that phase of their life, they're looking to reduce the risk in their portfolio. And we've identified them as being a balanced investor. And what that generally means is for most balanced portfolios, you're going to have about 50% of your money in shares and property and other growth assets, and potentially 50% of your money is going to be in government bonds, fixed interest, term deposits, cash, that sort of defensive assets. And the reason for that is that you want to try and find the balance between growth and risk or volatility. So you might still want to get a little bit of growth, target a sort of 6 to 7% return, but you're not going to want to see your balance of your super go up and down too much, because when you're in retirement, that can cause havoc with your sort of emotional state, and you might think, well, if I do lose a lot, I don't want to have to wait 10 to 20 years for it to recover because I don't have that amount of time. The problem this client was having when they were doing their own research is that they looked at a couple of different options. They looked at, I think they were comparing Australian super and they were comparing the Vanguard superannuation. Was a couple of options there. The one that was labelled balanced within Australian super looked like it was returning a lot better than the one that was labelled balanced within the Vanguard option. But when we looked under the hood, the Australian super option actually had more than 70% of the assets in the one that's labelled balanced in growth assets, whereas the Vanguard one was a true 50-50. So if we adjusted for that, actually the Vanguard option looked like a much better option, because Vanguard does have a 70-30 option, but they call it a growth. So a truer comparison would have been Vanguard's growth to Australian super's balanced. So some people think it's a little bit sneaky. I don't know. I think maybe they're doing it intentionally. I think a balanced fund should be 50-50. Anything above that should be labelled growth or the like. But be careful to look under the hood. You need to compare apples to apples when you're considering your options. If you're unsure, reach out to a professional and they can run you through the actual underlying allocations. But I reckon that balanced investment option at Australian Super is going to give a lot more volatility than what a lot of balanced investors would actually be looking for. So be careful. Compare apples to apples and look under the hood, and if you can't figure it out, reach out to a professional and they'll help it clarify it for you.